Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to another Golden Feather. Grab a pint, grab a plate, and pick your seats. Your hosts, Vertek and Chibi, are back from their latest adventure.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Golden Feather. Today is the 22nd of July, 2022, and this is episode 131. Exterminate, eliminate, or block. And yes, that is kind of a Doctor Who reference. If you didn't get that, then we can no longer be friends. Maybe we can, but we'll see. But yeah, we have our guest Extermicide, and Sir Friend, how are you today? Besides,
I'm indoors. The AC is on. I'm keeping cool. I'm good.
Nice. Hey, sometimes it's all you can ask.
I feel sorry for everybody else. What's that?
There you go. All right, and on the other side, we have the lovely face of the Chibi. How are you today?
I am doing well. I am also keeping cool. There's a heat wave coming through, looks like. And I'm excited to chat some ashes.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep cool, but without turning the rest of the house into an iceberg. The third floor gets really hot.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But you know, it's all right.
Fine
it's
with
all right.
Icebergs.
Hey, I'm okay with icebergs as long as I'm choosing to put it into an iceberg mode. When it comes to wintertime up in the north, I'm not a fan. Not a fan.
Also, as the person who's on the lower floors, I'm not a fan of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Being
We have to switch this up.
Yeah, we just gotta swap our location. You know, you come down here, I'll go up there. There you go.
Do some shuffle. I could deal with that. So, for those who, for some reason, may not be paying attention to the world of Ashes and people talking about it, that may not have heard your name before, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Me?
You.
Everybody knows who I am. Come on. If you don't, you're under a rock. Guys,
Yeah,
I am
they may have just crawled out
Extermicide.
of the WoW Rock.
I am Extermicide, the host of the Burning Discussion. We air every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, and we talk all things Ashes. We have counting myself, there's a panel of 6 of us, and then every now and then a guest or two will pop in to say hi, and we discuss all things Ashes, and not just Ashes, but all things that are gaming related that somehow could fall into the Ashes category at some point.
Hello,
Ah.
brother.
And
Yes.
you know, around here we love all things Ashes, so
Yes.
good stuff. It's good stuff.
I agree.
So I know last week we ended up plugging your like the PSA episode you did.
Mm-hmm.
But do you do those types of things very often, or was that kind of a, hey, this is what we should cover because it came up in thoughts and stuff like that?
It's the first time we covered that particular topic. I mean, every now and then we will do something that's, like I said, off the wall. Was a week or two before that, we had an episode called Ashes of Creation, the movie.
Mm.
And basically we looked back at every video game that inspired a movie to make to become come out of it, starting all the way back with Super Mario Brothers and looking at all the money that they made over the years. And then World of Warcraft was like that one big one that it could have been huge, but they waited too long to actually get it out. If it was released during its height, it would have made probably twice the amount of money it did. So we discussed that and then said, Steve wants to make a game here that's going to be really freaking thick in lore and everything. And what if he gets to a point where he decides, hey, let's expand this. Let's do books. Let's create a movie, and he decides he wants to go that route and everything. When would be a good time for him to do this? Because you don't want to make the same mistakes that like Blizzard did with WoW.
Mm-hmm.
So we do off the wall topics like that too, because when you're talking about a game that's so far out, hasn't been released yet, everybody is recirculating the same information over and over and over again. So we want to at least bring something refreshing to the table every now and then. So
Absolutely.
I would say like every 3, 4, maybe 5 episodes, we'll come out with something just out of thin air that has nothing really to do with Ashes directly, but can be linked to Ashes if you really think about it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Off the wall ideas are fun. I know the way I found out, or the first thing I saw from Half Tilt Gamer was the series he was doing with kind of inventing legendary artifacts from some of the people in the lore that was coming out in APOC, and saying, well, it mentions this person and they're this type of whatever, and they do this, they take this type of action in this lore, and we know that they were in this type of area, so let's assume that. And then he would just run wild and create like a whole dungeon based around a theme and have these artifacts in there and what these artifacts would do. And that was pretty cool. It was one of those cool. Super imagination, like a lot of heavy lifting on that one.
I think that's one, that what makes a good podcast a lot of fun is when you get your crew to actually start brainstorming, and let's just, think outside the box. What would we like to see? What would we want to be able to do? And not just go by the wiki, which the wiki is great and everything, but it hasn't been updated in like forever. We don't know if half that stuff is still going to be presented into Ashes in the form that it is written in the wiki, because things change every day.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, could be just one feedback form away from something being altered. Never know.
Yep. So looking forward to getting into the spot testing, though. I wish they would hurry up and start that. So
right. You and me both.
Speaking of, can you believe that it's been 1 year? Like this time last year, Alpha 1 was open.
Yes and no. I think what kind of took my attention from Ashes for a little bit was the whole fiasco of the graphic card market. I needed new graphic cards, and every day I'm like, oh my God, the prices are going up more. What the hell's going on? These crypto people need to stop this. The prices are just going insane. And trying and hunting to try to find a good deal on a graphic card because I needed one. And it kind of got my mind off of Ashes for a little bit. I think that year went by quicker because of that, of all things.
Right.
Prices are starting to come back to normal. Yay.
Yeah, I was looking at graphics cards. So you go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying I'm happy to see that too. That's all I said.
Yeah, I was in the market for a graphics card about a year ago or so, and just saw the ridiculous pricing and realized that to get a decent graphics card, I may as well just buy another PC that comes with one and get all the components refreshed to brand new.
What's scary about that is the people who actually spent those crazy amounts of money to get those cards. And okay, I get it. You needed it that desperately, or you were a crypto farmer and you had all the money in the world. So therefore you're buying as many as you freaking can. What scares me is companies like NVIDIA and AMD now see that they can sell a card for that amount of money and people will pay for it. Mm-hmm. And that's going to hurt those of us little guy gamers, who build our own systems. They'll still sell their cards, but now I think there's going to be a new market price that, that'll become the norm. Whenever anything kind of starts to go up in price, it's very rarely do you see it come back down in price. Luckily, gas is one of them. We're starting to see gas prices come back down a little bit and everything.
Thank God.
But there's a lot of other things I look at on either on eBay or Amazon or Newegg. The prices are still a lot higher than they are supposed to be, or at least higher than what they were a year or two ago. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, here's hoping it continues to drop on down.
Yeah, fingers crossed for sure.
So there was apparently an office hours thing that happened. This is something that I honestly didn't know they held on a regular basis.
Yeah, same.
Just because I don't really hang around the Discord very often. Were you aware of that? The office hours Discord thing?
Gladys of the Burning Discussion pointed it out to the rest of us the other day, and he's actually been attending it because of his work hours. He says, it's just where they all get in and talk after work at those later hours. And he says a lot of people end up going in there. I should actually visit the Ashes Discord much more than I do, which I don't. And I keep telling myself that I should, but I don't. No particular reason, but I really should get in there at some point.
Yeah, we used to hang out in there a lot, and then we kind of realized that there's not as much Ashes discussion going on when there's really not a ton of news.
Yeah.
And we have other social circles that we already have to keep maintenance on because people need to know that you're alive to talk to you. So we ended up stop going in there too often. But one of these days we'll swing back in when they start kicking up more big news.
Yeah, absolutely.
More big
Still
news.
the occasional visit though.
Yeah.
Say more big news.
More big news. Let me ask you a question on your own show. Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Since because this is how I feel. Since the announcement of Unreal 5, since that particular live stream that Steve did where they announced, the Unreal 5 and they showed it to us and everything, have you been disappointed with any of the live streams since then?
Can't say I have. Really, I can't bring anything to mind where I would say I was disappointed necessarily. I mean, not having an Alpha 2 announcement.
There was a point in time there I was getting disappointed because every time we did a live stream, here's the new skins for this month, here's the new mount we're introducing, and it was the same stuff over and over again. But now they're showing like the weather, and they're starting to show the combat, and it's like, wow, ever since Unreal 5 was announced and everything, we're starting to see this game actually pieced together, and it's looking damn good.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I agree.
Thank you so much, Aberrat, by the way. Much appreciated. Too kind. What race is that in the demo? That's the VEC.
Yep. They recently released more full body versions of the VEC, and this was, I think, one of the first character creators of the VEC.
The character creator in general. They showed that after the Unreal 5 announcement. So I there's been every live stream has not been disappointing at all. Even if they give us a little, the little that they're giving us is something that they haven't given us before,
right?
Or we're starting to see the polished touches. That combat was looking really good. There was actually, just watching the combat, and I know it's not finalized yet, which gets me even more hyped. But when he swung that thing, you could feel the thump. You could feel the impact. And I'm like, that's what was missing in Alpha. When we did Alpha 1, that's exactly what was missing, and now we're seeing it. So
the VEC is. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out what the VEC is.
Okay. Yeah, I'll let me go ahead and I'll get the video pulled up. You go ahead and tell me.
Oh no, I was gonna let you actually explain it because that's your race.
Yeah, I'm all about the VEC. They are one of two of the work-based races. One of them is very warlike and very large, very muscular, gigantic, looks down upon everybody else, like literally from a higher altitude almost.
Typical Warcraft orcs, the mean ones.
But they're tall boys, not like the little short, stooped over, broken things. And then this right here is the VEC. They're more stargazy. I don't know how warlike they are. I don't recall anything being stated about how warlike they are, but they do look pretty vicious.
Yeah,
but
I think they're
all about
they're more
astrology.
They're intellectuals in astrology, and so it'll be nice to see if they get some kind of perks that revolve around that whole stargazing thing, because the fact that, you know, with all the ships coming in and everything, and you know, the ship navigating, it'll be nice if the Vex are going to be able to like look at the stars and have a map to, you know, where they're going and all that. And it's just going to be cool to see what they do for passives for these characters.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I was thinking it'd be great if you had to use something like an astrolabe for sailing, and they'd get a bonus for accuracy, or be able to find, you know, the directions quicker, something in those lines. But I think it should definitely be a thing. Oh man, that's a hard-hitting question there. Remember, that's pure speculation, but I don't know, if it's not 2024, it's 2025.
Yeah.
That's where I'm throwing money at. Oh.
That's
what are you disappointed about in the look of the Vec?
I'm optimistic. I'm actually looking more at towards the end of 2024, to be honest with you. I think they're a lot further than they're letting us. I thought that forever before the Unreal 5 announcement. I thought that, and I know I was right about it, because when they showed some footage and everything, Steven's chat window was different than the one we had in Alpha 1. It's like, he ain't playing on the same version we're playing on.
Yeah.
So it didn't surprise me. But then after, you know, the Unreal 5 kicks in, and then he says, you know, everyone's going to be able to start working on this at the same time, because before you know, in Unreal Engine 4, I could work on this part. I have to hand it over to this guy. Now he can continue working. And only one person could work on one thing at a time. And now that everyone can actually collaborate and go in, and especially when a lot of these people are still freaking probably working from home, not everyone's in the office yet, it makes it a lot easier to just get the stuff done. And I think they're a lot freaking further than they're leading on. But Steven has made the mistake before of actually giving dates, and that's come back to bite him in the ass. So he's being very careful, and he's being micromanaged by Margaret to not drop anything that has even potentially an ounce of truth to dates and, you know, in his statements. So I get it, but I don't think, I think it's going to be sooner than we think.
Yeah.
I keep thinking to myself that Steven may be known for his sandal, but behind the scenes she might be known for his slipper, for like thwacking him. Like, why did you say that?
He probably has bruises all over him from Margaret beating on him all the time.
Honestly, Gildumber, I see your question. I'll be right back to that. I really hope they have a ton waiting in the wings to surprise the hell out of us. Yes, I agree, Captain Redbeard. In terms of the question about the Riot game, honestly, Riot has a full team though. Like they have a much bigger team. They're
AAA studio with a AAA budget with AAA staff. Exactly.
So to compare that to an indie company like Intrepid Studios is kind of unfair. Also, I don't think Steven's in it to win a race. I think Steven's in it for the marathon and trying to make sure that at the end of the marathon, it's a quality game and not a rush to completion game. So in terms of which one will be done first, I don't really know. To be frank, I don't really care about the Riot MMORPG that's coming out. I kind of just don't really like a lot of things that Riot does in general.
Does anybody know what engine that Riot game is going to be using?
I have no idea personally.
Who knows?
Because in my opinion, I think that's one of the. If there's a race, that's the race. Who's going to get the first Unreal Engine 5 MMO out? That's for some bragging rights right there.
Right. Yeah. But Riot could finish first with the Unreal Engine 5 MMO, but Ashes could finish with a better MMO on Unreal Engine 5.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't doubt that at all.
From the devs said they aren't trying to reinvent the wheel for their game. They just want to make a good typical MMO, and they also don't guarantee it will even release. Wow. Okay.
Okay.
That is fair. Many games that go into development don't release. That's true. Aberrat, I don't know what a Boston Cooler is, so I have no opinion. Or I would be biased in saying root beer float.
Yeah, I'm gonna say root beer float because I don't know what a Boston cooler is. So therefore, in my mind, it's already better.
Yeah. Verner's and ice cream. Interesting. I hope part of A2 is finding the hidden things that we should expect to find in launch. How good are our clues, our environment to hide things or pique interest? Ooh, I like that. Root beer float for the win. Knowing nothing about the game, I think Right MMO will be on the New World's level, popular for a bit, then dies like the rest. Yeah, that's fair. I think that's been a trend. As I karate chop my mic, I think that's been a trend lately, where like a MMO will release and then just it phase out, like it just fizzles. And I'm not really quite sure why, outside of maybe things being introduced that weren't planned, like New World, I believe, with the way New World was originally in development, and then after development, when it released, it became different from what they initially wanted it to be, or planned it to be, rather.
We discussed this on Burning Discussion one night, and I think the consensus was that most MMOs that come out, you dive into it, and a few minutes into the game, you realize I've done this before. It's a different skin, but I've done this before. Mm-hmm. And that's the reason MMOs are just kind of like
fizzling.
Yeah, they're not lasting as long as they did. They're not holding people's interest before because nothing new is being brought to the table.
Right.
And that's where Ashes
really shines.
Is going to stand a lot different, with the whole node system and the bounty hunter system and just, the caravan system. There's a lot more systems coming into play with Ashes that if we've seen them before, we've seen them in little iterations, maybe here and there, but we've never seen a game bring all this together into one game, and that's exciting.
Yeah.
I think there's where the hype is.
Mm-hmm.
And not as tied together as they all are in this.
Right.
Much more combined and meshed together.
Yep. That makes sense. And also like Overthrow said, apparently towards the end of max level, things were just fundamentally not working. And so technically that is kind of like an unfinished game. At that case, like you get to max level, but it's broken. So it's not fun.
Now, if I get into Ashes and the very first quest I grab tells me to go kill 10 rats, I'm going to freaking be pissed. Okay. Been here, done this.
Yeah.
It's not going to be rats. It's going to be cursed chargers. Jeez.
That's different.
Is the right one even going to be a proper MMORPG? Maybe I'm thinking of another game, but I remember something about the game not being an MMORPG in the traditional sense from Ashes and Air. It's a good question.
Honestly, the first thing I thought of when I heard they were going to make an MMO was going to be, okay, so here comes another Diablo in League Land.
Right.
It's kind of what I expected them to do.
I just hope all these developers back off the early releases in the future. MO2 admitted to a rushed game and pledged to focus on bug fixes moving forward instead of more development. Yeah, honestly, that's why, as not annoyed even, as maybe sometimes bummed out as I get over Ashes not having a whole lot of information to share, I understand and I'm okay with it because they're going very slowly to make sure, like, when they push back, they're pushing back because there's something that they want to show us, but it's not quite ready. Or they're not giving out any dates anymore because they don't want to rush themselves against a deadline that may initially seem reasonable, but then be hard to keep onto depending on random things that come up. I mean, as a web developer, I typically have an idea of how long it's going to take me to do a thing, but then I add extra time on top of that to account for the padding of anything happening. So if it takes me a week, I'll say it takes me 3 weeks, for example. And in this case, they're just refraining from using any dates until they're sure. And I really appreciate that.
Like I said, Steven made the mistake before of giving some dates, and it bit him in the ass, and he got hit hard by the community. He won't make that mistake again.
Yeah.
No.
Things you learn when you're making your first game, though, too. So
yeah, it's got to be a lot.
He's going in full fledged here. He's investing a lot of money into this, and it's funny because a lot of people are saying that, well, you know, he's just creating the game that he wants to play, and that's absolutely correct. Okay, but don't think he's just creating it just for the fact that that's what he wants to play. The man wants to see his money come back to him.
Right.
Okay?
It's an investment.
It's an investment, which he hopes to make a lot of money from, and he probably will. Is it a gamble? Yes, only because of the genre of game it is. But this goes all the way back to us saying, you know, can you make an MMO in today's day and age that actually attracts people because it's bringing so much newer stuff to the freaking table, and it's going to actually be different and not just say it's going to be different. And you know what? I used to take everything he said before. I used to call Steven, and I'm sorry, Steven, but I used to call Steven the biggest. He's either really freaking, he's passionate, and I would say that he's either telling us the truth about all of this, or he's the biggest car salesman that I've ever seen in my life. You know, lie to you and just freaking do it with a freaking smile. You know, I took everything that he said with a grain of salt. And then, like I said, once that Unreal 5 footage came out and we started to see everything piecing together, you start looking at it, it's like, holy shit, this is it's starting to come together. This is actually happening. And I think a lot of people who were doubting it prior to that Unreal 5 announcement and everything, and saw what we all saw at the same time, are now, that doubt is turning into excitement. You know, Creed and I, for years, have saying that we wanted to see a game with real-time weather. You know, not just, you know, you go into this zone and it starts snowing. It does that every time you go in that zone, but just now you hear the thunder. Oh, storm clouds are rolling in and it's going to start raining, you know, and that can come into play as to, you know, how your spells work and everything. If you got lightning spells, you know, with the water, you know, they could be more damaging. If you got fire spells, maybe not as much because everything's wet.
Impacting the actual environment. This
is exciting.
I agree.
But also, further, your comment there with New World had no horizontal progression. Crafting was neat, but underdeveloped. They went hard on environment and copy pasted. I saw, I didn't play New World, but I did see some memes on it. And one of them showed, like, I think 3 different towns with the same exact map, just like flipped and then rotated and then flipped and rotated again. But it was the same exact town, like building for building, street for street, like the same number of signposts and everything.
Oh, that's lazy.
They just copied the city, moved it over here, rotated it, or reversed the roadmap the other direction. And you
don't think people will notice, but they notice.
But, you know, when you're a big company like Amazon, you can't be called out on stupid crap like that. You have all the money in the world to hire as many people you need to create a really freaking good game. And when you start taking shortcuts like copy and paste whole freaking towns and everything, people are going to notice. You know, we're gamers have been gaming for so damn long that we take note to what's different from game to game, or even in a game from town to town. We take note of everything. That we want to be surprised at every turn. Okay, so if I enter this new town, I want to just be in awe. It's like, wow, look at this. You know, it looks like freaking an old Norse town. This is freaking great. And you go to the next town, and it's like, oh my God, everything's dark and gloomy. It looks like a vampiric freaking, you know. You want to be surprised at every turn, but when you start being late, you know, it's lazy programming like that and everything, and people start calling you out for it. Your audience then splits into 2 people: the naysayers who are going to defend the game for everything because they've been defending it for so damn long already, and then the other people are saying, you know what, this is boring, I'm out of here. And that's what happened with New World. They started to freaking trickle. Those numbers just started going, and it's a shame. The game looks great. It really does. I watched more videos on it than I should have. Roar on the Burning Discussion actually worked for Amazon at the time, so he kept trying to get me to come into the game, and I would look at the videos, but I had too much on my plate to actually start playing it.
Right.
But I would look at the videos in my downtime. You know, I'm having dinner or something. I'd pull up a freaking New World video. I'd watch it and everything. It's like, wow, that looks pretty freaking cool. But even in the freaking videos, you start to notice copy and paste,
little things. Yeah.
And
I just never really developed interest for it.
It didn't surprise me when the numbers started to dwindle. It did not surprise me at all.
Mm-hmm.
No, just from the comments I heard. But yeah, great sound. I keep hearing that though. The audio was amazing.
Yeah. Okay, got nothing else. I just kind of wanted to point out, AJ says that I think we are going to see some of that with the nodes and ashes, but the player customization will make it different. I don't know. It's a good question, because at the end of the day, you might see like similar places for placement of things, but it's up to the mayor, I believe, to place things certain locations.
So you got to remember too, these towns, these cities,
procedurally generated
are race.
That too. They're affected by the race, inspired.
Yes.
Not inspired, but
the race that donates the most towards the experience of the node it's gonna be in that race's theme. Plus, they built that tool. That was one of the first big tools they built, was to procedurally generate the nodes. So if you do get two sounds that look identical,
look like another Orc City Hall, but an Orc City Hall is going to be a lot different than an Elf City Hall, a Tolnar City Hall, a Human City Hall. There's going to be differences.
Yeah. Oops.
I think if you end up with two similar looking towns, you better start taking screenshots, because that's going to be a very accidental rarity.
Yeah. There we go. I also wanted to post this up there. Sorry. Throther said, Wagner did mention in last month's Q&A answers on the forum post that spot testing could definitely occur before A2. So, just putting that out there.
Oh, hey there, Meatloaf. Welcome on in.
Well, it's
hello.
Supposed to.
And the races have an architectural inspiration, so it should vary quite a bit. I agree.
Yeah, they should. I think it would be silly to not do some kind of small, limited spot testing before dropping, a testing phase to the masses, especially as the testing phases get bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
They've already started to clean up their own Discord forum for the spot testing channel, so it's going to happen. It's going to happen.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. Got my fingers crossed that the TI thing, gets an invite. We'll see, though. We'll see.
Yeah. How will your beard respond to these differences? I don't know. It's a good question. I think my beard will stay glorious.
Give up on Stargate memes? Loudy. But yeah, so the office hours thing. I actually did kind of want to talk about that one a little bit, but we'll hold that off till I mention the dev discussion later on.
Okay.
Because it kind of ties into that. That's what they were discussing. But the one thing, the thing that kind of spawned the or block part of our title today on the podcast was active blocking. How should that work? Mitigate, reduce, avoid? Like how would you see active blocking working with ashes? And do you think it would work with passive blocking at the same time, or should it be one or the other?
What do you mean by passive blocking?
Like you just equip a shield and 25% of the time you reduce X amount of damage. So you just kind of like the blocking in WoW where you just wear a shield and like 12% of the time you reduce 60% of damage.
You know what? I can't say I really got a thought on this, to be honest, because I think any way they do it would work. However, the one thing I want to see that they definitely have to have is I from the way I understand it, your gear takes wear and tear. So your weapons, your armor and everything, you have to get all that stuff repaired. If you don't, it'll break to a permanent broken state if you don't keep repairing it. We've seen that in other games before. This needs to happen with your shield too. So if you're equipping a shield, it's going to take a lot less damage because it's a shield. It's serving its purpose to block some damage. But over a course of time, if you don't repair it also, I want to see that shield get to the point where it just crumbles.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
breaks.
Yeah, Jalon actually had a big old video response to it. And I think the community over there, because he talks for days, for hours every day, and they talk about every nitty-gritty thing you could imagine. They ended up coming up with like a couple different options that they were discussing about blocking. And one of them did mention that like shields would have a certain health pool, and you would block 100% of the damage. When you go into a stance to actively block, you would block 100% of the damage while you're blocking, but as soon as that health pool is gone, then you basically are fatigued and you can't block again. Or it would go into like an over damaged state, and the more damage your shield has taken, the longer it takes for that health pool, quote unquote, to build back up so you can actively block again. So if you take just a couple hits and you drop your shield again, it's going to recover fairly quickly. But if you hold it up there and you soak up all that health pool of that shield, it's going to take a lot longer to generate that life back. If you let it go into an over damaged mode, then you would or not really mode, but if you over damage the shield, then it would be an even deeper penalty on how long it's going to take to revamp up or ramp back up that health pool.
In theory, that sounds great and everything, except if you're that main tank and you're tanking that big ass dragon, you're going to be blocking the whole freaking time. That's your job. Block, taunt, occasionally stab them with your pointy thing, but it's taunt, block, that's your thing. And if your shield gets, has a health pool that gets all the way freaking down, I can see that being problematic for a main tank against a big boss.
We'll see. That's where it ends up. I think he had a good point, and he elaborated deeper than my thought was, because I had a similar thought, but he went way, as Jalon does, further in the deep end than I did in the thought process, which was if you did have passive blocking in there still, all the other classes could still use a shield, but a tank would just have an innate bonus to blocking with it because, they're trained as a tank. They're trained to use the thing to actually block. So they may have, say twice or a little bit more than twice the chance of passively blocking some damage coming in. And that could atone for just wearing the shield helps you take damage, but then your shield stance that blocks would be more of the emergency button or even a mini cooldown, because you could do a mini cooldown and chunk away like a quarter of the health on that shield, come back out of that block stance, wait for the block to charge back up so you can do it again. But you could do that a lot more often than one giant chunk, or just leaving the shield up for a minute and soaking up all the damage while you just cower behind it.
This makes me wonder if like a raid group will have to get to a point where you have two main tanks, you have two tanks in your freaking group, and you have to alternate them in. If that shield goes all the way down, okay, I need to come out, the other tank comes in, he gets the aggro and the other one gets out. If you're gonna have to start doing stuff like that, because I get what you're saying and everything, but if you're that tank and that freaking gets all the way down and everything, I would hate to be that tank at that point. You're gonna make all the healers' jobs really freaking hard.
Well, it also depends on how it's all balanced, right? So if it's balanced around, say, needing to do a shield block once every 3 minutes or so because of a major cooldown coming from the boss, but if you were to drain your shield down to 0 and it takes 1 minute to recharge fully, then you could, in theory, get 2 complete shield health bars worth of blocking done, and then still let it charge up in time to be ready for that big chunk. So if you use it strategically and it's balanced properly in the fight, or balanced just in a way that works, I should say, not properly, because group dynamics, I think, are going to have a huge impact on the proper balance of a fight. But
you know what's funny is I'm sitting there giving that example of the tank, and here I am kind of like given reasons why not to go with something like or reasons to stay with something like the passive and everything. But then at the beginning of the show, what I said, what I want from this game is something we haven't seen before. I want this game to scare the hell out of me. I really do. I want these fights to not be what we've had in every other MMO, where it's tank and spank and boom, we're done and we get our loot. I want to have that fear that I'm going to die. I think that's what kind of makes an MMO fun. I remember the very first time in World of Warcraft when talking about classic way back, when I first rode over a hill and everything, and then I saw a bunch of freaking people down there, a whole army, and they were all red. And I'm like, oh, that's the enemy. And I turned right around and I ran the opposite direction and everything. It scared the hell out of me. But years later, I still remember that. It was like one of the coolest freaking things. I liked the fact that you had rogues that were just completely invisible. I couldn't see them, and I was constantly looking over my shoulder in the game. I liked being scared in the game. And if we have to learn to fight raid bosses differently than we did in other freaking games, I'm okay with that. I want the game to be different. I want to have to learn new shit. I don't want it to feel like been here, done this before.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Agreed.
I'm just highlighting some pieces of things that chat's saying that's kind of going along with the conversation as you guys talk. But Bertha was saying that tank swapping is should definitely be doable. Happens in other MMOs, which makes sense. And I remember playing a couple of raids where tank swapping wasn't a necessary mechanic, but someone else was also saying that they would like to see it kind of taken off the top of the damage a little bit with the shields. And I like the idea of having the active to block, but the passive, just a little bit of a passive is nice. Because in reality, if I'm thinking of armor types, you have your cloth, you have your leather, you have your chainmail, you have your full metal, like mail and plate mail, etc. Your cloth is going to be the least resistance to a blade, so that's going to be the easiest, less defense. Your leather is going to have slightly more defense, but not nearly as much as the chainmail. But the thing that's going to protect you the most in terms of a blade swinging at you would be the plate mail or the full heavy metal armor. So as a tank who is supposed to be wearing something like that and also have a shield potentially, unless you're doing 2 weapon fighting, or I mean even 2 shield fighting.
Dual shielding.
That's
what I'm doing. I'm a turtle every fight.
It makes sense that if you have a shield on you, like if your shield is on your back and somebody hits you on the back, you're going to hit the shield. So it makes sense to have that passive protection of someone being like, I'm going to attack your back. Boom. It's kind of like, I guess, with Monster Hunter, where if they have pieces of their the creature's body where if it's like really heavily armored because it's thick scales versus soft fur, you do less damage on that. And that makes sense. So to me, the passive blocking would make sense in that sense and in that case. But the active blocking with fighting is where more of your defensive blocking is coming from. And I think that sounds like a nice balance to me. And yes, that's coming from the clothy wearing cleric player. But also from form and function mentality. If I'm wearing heavy armor, I should be able to block some of the hits that are coming in versus wearing light armor.
So correct me if I'm wrong, Vertec, you do play a tank?
Yeah. That's what
So
I play almost exclusively.
This is definitely an important topic for you, of interest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm a spellcaster usually in most of the freaking games I play and everything. So tanking, I'm kind of like talking through my ass a little bit because I'm not going to be the guy tanking, so
right,
I've done it.
I like what Milo said. Sorry.
Oh, what was that? Go ahead and share.
I was just saying, I like what Milo said. They need to make blocking more attractive. Why block when you could dodge? So abilities or buffs or tactical advantage reasons to make blocking an attractive option over dodging.
Yeah, honestly, if they're gonna have, that's exactly it. If they are going to have active blocking in the game, it needs to be functional in a way that a tank is actually going to debate using it or not. Like, is this gonna work better than this other skill? I don't know. They're both really good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this one might be better for that situation. Like, make them think about it. Don't make it just it's superior and that's just what I'm going to use until it's out and then I'm going to do something else. Don't make it weaker to the point of
It's not to say we're not going to see them, but I've always been totally against cookie cutter builds. And we if you give us a lot of freaking options for our builds and everything, then people have to start choosing. Maybe this is better than this, whatever. And just because one guy makes a freaking video and says, hey, the ultimate tank build and everything, just because it was the ultimate tank build for you doesn't mean it's going to be the ultimate tank build for the next guy, because everybody has different play styles.
Where was that? Yeah. I saw something. Maybe it missed it, but somebody was asking about throwing up the wall and hiding behind that for some damage eating. Well, what if you don't have that skill? What if you... Yeah. What if you chose to not use that skill for your setup, and so you don't have that skill? Because I'm sure there's going to be different playstyles of tank, just like there's different playstyles of healer, and different playstyles of other classes. I'm scrolling through as I'm talking.
I would really, I'd really like to see what comes of like a tank ranger.
Mm-hmm.
Because I want to see what they have for like range tanking type options.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen one game do a range tank,
thank you.
and it was so much fun.
What game was it?
That was WildStar. One of the reasons I loved it. It wasn't like long range, but it was mid range. I would be, a good 15 yards away from them, grabbing their attention, and on the run, I could keep attacking them, and because I had a big old gun, I was an engineer type character.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a whole lot of fun because I could grab things and I could root them into the ground and then run out away from their damage range and keep shooting at them, keep threat on them, and keep debuffing them. And that, I really, really hope there's something interesting about that that lets me do some stuff at range.
I like this other thing from Throther. Throther says if a dungeon group is 1 tank, 1 cleric, and 6 DPS, would it feel bad to not need 5 tanks for a 40-man raid? Or is 2 the magic number?
Let me tell you something. You
always need those heals.
Yeah. I mean, I really want to see a requirement for more tanks in the big raids. Like, or at least highly beneficial, because to me that would indicate that they're trying to make it complicated enough where you need to keep things spread out, or you need to rotate quickly enough and often enough to different places that it's keeping the tank life exciting. Because after a while, once you've gotten a little bit of gear, because let's face it, if you're going through a run of a dungeon or raid and gear drops for a tank, who's getting it? It's going to be like not even rolling. Like the tank is getting the gear because the tank has got to live or we all die.
Mm-hmm.
So once the tank gets fully geared out, then the gear starts trickling out to other people, right? So in that meantime, you're getting stronger and stronger. You're able to face things a lot easier, to the point where now the tank job is boring. And I'm just here every week to make sure I get everybody else all their stuff as well, so we can move on to the next place. But I mean, I'm not going to bail on anybody, but I just want to let you know that I am absolutely watching a movie on my second screen while I'm tanking this, because this is so routine and blah, and nothing's terribly interesting about this fight. It was never crazy interesting, but now it's just meh. So definitely, if there's a need or a really strong suggestion of you'll probably want to go ahead and have your 5, 6, 7 tanks for this raid, that'll interest me, because that means that you're not replacing out, like, well, even with 40-man raids and WoW, it was like, yeah, bring 3 tanks. All right, well, what about the other people that only have tank gear, and oh well, they're just gonna have to bench it. Like the one time where tanks are actually overpopulated, right?
I like what Overthrow says. They do need to make open world bosses extremely nasty, otherwise they'll just end up as loot pinata when enough players shows up.
Oh, 100% agree. Open world bosses, again, I want to ride over that hill and then see it and be, or even hear it in the distance, like, holy shit, where is it? You know?
Yeah.
And you ride over the hill, you see what it is. It's like, no, I'm out of here. Screw this. And if it sees you, it starts to chase your ass. I want to freaking have that sense of fear, you know, and try to get away from it.
Yeah.
You know, if you're on foot, you're probably going to get caught and eaten and whatnot. If you're on horseback, maybe you'll get away. You know, you got a
maybe
chance.
Let's get. Yeah, here's something. Ashes of Nera just brought up a statement that I think raises a pretty good question, because I've tried thinking about this and I can't think of a way around it. Okay. Ashes of Nera said, I kind of hope that we don't even get that type of repetitive raid experience in Ashes. That they somehow don't get into the gear treadmill trap. Now, the question is, how do you truly avoid the gear treadmill trap without making the game easy mode? Because the gear treadmill trap is, we're going to give you some content, and then we're going to give you tougher content, and then tougher content, until at some point everybody's going to hit their edge, their point of, I can't push harder than this. I just need better gear, or I cannot progress. So then you go with the raid group, and they get you that better gear, and then finally you can progress. And then you're pushing the boundary of your skill and your patience and your frustration. Like, you're hitting that boundary and you need better gear. So then you have to get that better gear by just continually smashing your face into it until you win. The only way that I have ever seen to avoid a gear treadmill is to literally make the game easy, so you don't even have to get better gear. You just get to end game, get proper level gear, and proceed to win. Otherwise, there is a gear treadmill every time.
And I agree with that, but I think Ashes is going to go the total opposite direction. Because remember, when we kill these raid bosses and everything, there is a slim chance that we will get a weapon that we're looking for, a chest piece that we're looking for, whatever. More than likely, we're going to get the mats that we need to collect to have a crafter create the pieces for us. And with that kind of system in place, I think it's going to take everybody longer to get the freaking pieces that they want. One of the things that we did talk on one of our burning discussions, though, was about these raid bosses. So how do you make these raids not boring?
Right.
Okay, so what our consensus was is you take a raid boss who usually has, like in any other game, a pool of maybe 10 moves, you know, and this is what sucks, you know, in the age that we live in, you want to know how to beat that boss. Well, you go to freaking YouTube, you pull up the boss fight, and it says, okay, phase 1, you do this. Phase 2, he's going to whip his tail and he's going to do this. And phase 3, he takes to the air, lands back down, then you charge back in. It tells you step by step how to defeat this boss. But what if you took a boss and instead of a set of 10 moves, you give him a set of 75 moves? He's not going to use every single move, every single encounter. It will still go in and take 10 moves out of that bag of all his moves. So every time you encounter this freaking boss, it's not the same fight. It's not even in the same order as phases go. You can still make guides on how to conquer certain phases and everything, but you don't know when that particular phase is going to come up. Hell, make it random enough where You busted your ass. You worked all your way all the way up to that boss and everything, and then 1 out of 100,000th chance. It's not going to happen all the time. It's just a very rare chance. Maybe you have a situation where the boss just comes out, looks the raid party, thinks to himself, "This ain't worth it," and just throws his loot on the ground and leaves. No fight whatsoever. It's a rarity, but the randomness of that raid dungeon would make people want to go back each night to see what's going to happen tonight. What's going to happen tonight in the raid.
Yeah. That's funny. Just, I'm tapping out. I'm out.
Cash says, I think open world bosses should scale with players around it, so it gets harder the more players gang on it, so we'll be able to be killed with a smaller group.
I want to see mobs do that. If there's a bunch of tigers, there's 5 of those fangs, whatever you call them.
Curse chargers.
Yeah, thank you. The chargers. So if there's 5 of them there, well, if we're all grouped up in a party of 5, we're buffing each other. Why should it be any different for these mobs? Mm-hmm. As there's 5 of them there, let them buff each other with different unique bosses, but as different unique buffs. But as one falls, then that buff is taken away, and if another one falls, that buff is taken away. Make the mobs tougher.
Yeah.
Try to figure out which one is the one that's healing the rest of them. Where we have, let's get that guy.
Yeah, I originally with the Kickstarter packs, one of the items was help create an event, and at the time, I really thought they meant like a boss fight or something like that, or like some actual like a big thing in the game, but they actually meant like an event like Happy Tree Day or something like that, where you just create a themed celebratory day in the game. Well, until I had that cleared up, I sat down and I was like, what would I do if I were to try to make an encounter? And came up with like just a big pile of ideas, one of which I can't talk about because I really want to send it to Intrepid anyway and just be like, see if you can sneak this in here because this is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But if they like the idea, it would end up taking at minimum a year to open up a secret dungeon. And you would have to collect stuff that you don't know that you're collecting for a reason unless you know you're collecting for a reason.
Yeah.
Just strange items and things.
And I love crap like that. If they don't want the game to get stale and boring, then they have to just constantly be introducing something ever changing. That's kind of going to be happening as the nodes change and everything, as they get bigger and they're eating up more, land of influence and everything. All that's going to kind of be happening. The city gets so freaking big, now a freaking dungeon opens up in this mountain over here, or the volcano erupts over here. That's all stuff that's going to freaking happen. But you need to have that randomness in almost every aspect of the game. Anytime when you're sitting there thinking of any different key element of the game, Intrepid really needs to be saying, okay, how are we going to do this? And one of the words that needs to come out of their lips first before everything else is randomness. How can we throw randomness into this? How can we throw randomness into this? The more randomness that they can throw into the game, the better. It's just going to make the game ever changing, and people are not going to get bored with it. And that's people's staying power these days. We don't want people to be joining the game and then after the 30-day of paying for that first month to play, say, yeah, it didn't turn me on like I was hoping, and check out. We don't want to see the population start to dwindle. We want to, on the contrary, we want it to replicate what World of Warcraft did, where everyone's talking about it, and they're getting their friends and their moms and their dads and everybody's families are freaking joining the game. That was huge back in the freaking day. Steve wants to recapture some of that, what made MMOs special back in those days. And part of that was the fact that it was new stuff that we hadn't seen before, or at least not on this scale. But adding randomness to the freaking game, it'll make a big freaking difference for Ashes.
Right.
Yeah, that was another one of the ideas, like, because what spawned that thought was the world boss comment needing to be badass. Because I was trying to think of ways to balance things like world bosses, and well, how about if there was a person off in one of the more corrupted areas that would, say, summon corrupted crows, and it just creates a big crow storm that ends up being awesome. Part of the fight. Like they would swoop from this side down to attack and whatnot, and swoop from over here to try to knock you back, and as more players were to join, more crows would be summoned. And then after a while, it would end up being more of, say, like the cursed chargers to come down and play around on the ground while you're still avoiding the stuff from the sky. And it would just keep stacking difficulty with different creatures that are corrupted, just joining in on it more and more. Just by people walking into the area, it would just summon more. And just become a tornado of corrupted zoo.
And that's the kind of crap we need. And because, again, goes back to what I was saying before. I want to be scared in this freaking game. That's exactly what I'm talking about. I want to be looking over my shoulder, looking to the sky, focusing on where this boss guy is. I want to have so much to freaking take in that if you're the guy who's just kind of, I usually pick flowers for a living, but today I'm going to go freaking check out this freaking fight. You're going to get your ass whooped, until you learn how these fights are done. Mm-hmm. I want that. I want to bring back, because WoW started getting to a point where it started to hold everybody's hands, and it started to make all these fights really freaking easy. Mm-hmm. And I want us to go back to having to have a raid group where the people in your group had to be somewhat capable, to understand certain mechanics and certain instructions. Everybody knows their job. They know not to stand in the red, and they know the freaking move. Simple things that have gotten to the point where we push them to the side and it's forgotten because we made these fights so freaking easy. Mm-hmm. I don't want easy anymore. I think all of us who appreciate the games of the past want to see some of that hardcore come back. And I really hate to use that word with Ashes, but I do believe Ashes kind of leans a little towards being a little bit more on the hardcore side than other MMOs.
Right.
Especially with all the PvP and everything. We're going into a dungeon now. Your raid group can encounter another freaking raid group. That's huge.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think
that makes you worry about the bigger guilds who are just going to block the freaking entrance and not let anyone else go in.
Yeah. And I think that to the point that I just had it up, they may not make it as difficult because there's other people that can come in and mess with your raid or your attacking of the boss, so there's that. And then I like what Meatloaf said as well, just to kind of touch back on the blocking thing. Meatloaf said I would enjoy active blocking. Personally, I enjoy that. However, I think active blocking is simple and effective. I would like them to address the way that it works on a class or archetype base. For example, heavy plate variant takes less damage when using a shield that they don't recoil. Maybe a duelist takes less with single-bladed weapons and can parry. Overall, the thought was a basic system that they could tune on a case-by-case basis as it pertains to the classes and archetypes specifically. And so I think having something like that where it's maybe not so much a just spam your abilities, do your rotation, but it's more active game playing. There's more like, okay, well, the boss is doing this thing, which I've not really seen him do before. So now I have to I can use this to block with that or things like that. So you're more reacting to what's happening versus, all right, it's the one dungeon in WoW where there's the two big guys and you have to go back and forth.
Oh, you're talking about Ice Crown with what was it?
Yeah, I was like, no, Stinky.
Yeah, Stinky.
But
oh my gosh, I can't remember their name.
Yeah. But that, it just, okay, well, I know if I just sit here and I spam this rotation, they'll just die. I can just kind of do it on auto without even worrying about it. I mean, part of that is also being an over-leveled character, going back to the old content to spam it for mounts and stuff like that. But the other part of it is just like, where's the engagement at that point? The AI doesn't learn. It's the same moves. You know, it's going to do this and then it's going to do that. Like, it just, But I think it would be just, I don't know, interesting. And then, who was it? There we go. Throther says, do we want all gear to be equally powerful compared to other gear? For example, in World of Warcraft, chest and pants were huge stats, but the gloves and braces were really low stats. Is that an acceptable right or wrong approach? Because in this game, gear is going to matter, right? The best gear is going to be crafted. And so should they be weighted equally, or should there be a more important emphasis on certain gear pieces?
I would say
Yes.
comparing your freaking like gloves and boots to your chest piece and everything. The chest piece should have the higher stats and everything, like we're used to and everything. But the crafter, when he crafts it, again, this goes back, where can I throw in that randomness? And I would like to see those stats, those numbers, to kind of be a little bit randomly generated. So if you have like 5 stats on your chest piece and everything, you might get a higher number for this particular stat, lower number than you were hoping for on this particular stat. It's that randomness that goes in. If you're not happy with that piece when all is said and done, collect some more mats and get it created again. Maybe the random number gods will be a little bit more generous to you. I'm fine with the random number generation, the RGN gods. I'm fine with that for something like this. I'm not a fan of like, the RGN, if you try to level this weapon up X amount of times and then it can break altogether and everything. Nobody likes that. Yeah. But I understand it's something that Steve's looking at, because again, what's Steve's favorite freaking phrase? Risk versus reward. If you want to gamble for it, take the risk. Maybe you'll get some better, stat numbers, coming out of it. So I'm kind of good with it.
Yeah, I think the stats that are provided should be directly comparable to the size of the item, because let's face it, if I were to say ride my motorcycle at 150 miles per hour and jump off the back of it, am I going to be as protected by a pair of boots as I am a suit of armor on my chest? Probably not. No, I'm going to want that armor on my chest. That's going to provide a lot more damage resistance.
There's also surface area that comes into effect.
To reiterate what I was just saying, though, your boots and your gloves could probably have, like, for each of the stats, you can get a random number from 1 to, let's say, 50 for each of those stats. But for a chest piece, it could be 1 to 100. The numbers can be a lot bigger.
Yeah. Sorry.
You get one internet point overthrow.
I recommend a helmet says overthrow if you're gonna jump off a motorcycle going at 150.
But yeah, I mean,
I can even see TKP.
Like a little bit of randomness in crafting stuff, but with me, I think that if you're a master crafter, if you're a master of your craft, you're going to either produce something that's fantastic or probably something you're going to throw away because you punched a hole in it accidentally.
Yeah.
So it's either going to be trash or treasure, but I think they need to work somehow to get skill as a factor.
Well, how about this? If you're a master crafter, it gives you the ability to choose one of those stats to lean heavier in. You can select that, but only as a master crafter. So while you're leveling up your crafting, it's pretty much RNG. But when you get to a master crafter, you get a little bit more say on, not full say on what the numbers are going to fall on, but you can put a little bit more weight on certain stats.
Well, I keep going back to this. Just WildStar had some great systems. One of the things about their crafting system is when you put in certain components, it would increase certain stats over others. And then once you got it built up to a certain point, you could legitimately say, take down 2 points of this to give me 1 point of that because I really want this and I don't care at all about that stat.
Yeah.
And you could even do it vice versa. If you really didn't care about this bottom one, you could take out one of those and it would give you 2 of the top one. So it'd be different ways you could customize that gear.
What if... sorry.
Oh, all good. I was just going to kind of wrap up what I was saying with the different gear pieces giving stuff is what could also be a pretty neat balance is if like pants and chest were to give more protection and defense, be it magical or physical, but then things like boots and gloves could give more actual stats, like more dexterity from wearing decent boots, and more strength would be coming from like your gloves, and more say constitution from your helmet. But then you're just getting straight defense, giant chunks of defense from your chest piece and whatnot.
Just out of curiosity, how the two of you are either you big time crafters, that's your thing in the MMO?
In a game where they do it to a degree that I enjoy, I could sit there for hours and make stuff. To the degree that most games seem to be doing it lately, if it's not important when I hit max level, then it's not important while I'm leveling, and then I just don't care.
Gotcha.
I was going to say something because you were talking about... Okay, yeah. So about specifically the particular thing I was trying to add into on before the subject got too far away from it again is the adding in components for specific different like ability adjustments. So like strength higher or this component for whatever else. Basically, I was thinking, what if you combined that with mastering, like, you know how Steven said that when you're doing your combos, if you do it right, it adds a little bit of damage over time, like while you're attacking. So the more that you get correct, like timed well, the better your damage will be. What if you applied something like that to crafting, where like what Sir Onsington said, I wouldn't mind seeing specific bosses that drop mats that are required to add strength, etc. So like you go farm your strength boss, you know that boss has strength drops, and in order to maybe even get a further boost in your strength is if you master that, if you hit every single one of your time checks, it adds a little bit on top of that to your percentages because the person crafting hit every single time check precisely, which is like a master crafter thing, right? You know exactly when to take the metal out of the fire, you know exactly when to start pounding on it to adjust the shaping, and when to stop and maybe put it back in the fire. So like that would help with honing your crafts and being able to see that difference between gear. And I also liked the secondary idea of adding flavor to the territory and control with a little less RNG.
How neat would it be? Since you mentioned a couple different ways of doing crafting stuff, how neat would it be if they came up with things like, let's say for instance, you were a weaponsmith, like a master weaponsmith, and you're trying to make some like a really awesome sword, right? So what if you had to go through some actual steps of crafting? Like you had to actually pull an iron out of the fire, and then you had to do like click a mouse or a keyboard button to an actual rhythm, not necessarily reactionary, like hit the line and then you're done, but like actually to a rhythm, and then pay attention to the color of the metal and know when to put it back in the fire or not.
Yeah.
I would just be worried that someone's going to create a bot that does it for them.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a possibility. Have they ever mentioned, are we going to have or see things like socketing jewels, you know, into weapons and armor? Have they ever discussed anything like that?
I'm trying to recall.
Yeah, I can't recall. Sorry, I was responding to Ashes in the Mirror real quick.
Like, I want to say that I do remember there were going to be things like that, but I don't want to commit to that. Let me take a look here.
Real quick, Nearer, I'm not sure I would want time checks, though. Internet lag could ruin days and weeks of farming. I get that. But I'm saying, what if doing these time checks, instead of doing the time checks to get 100% of whatever you're crafting, if you miss the time checks, that's fine. This is getting to like 110% versus your 100%. So like your 100%, you're going to come out with like a great item still, but for a little bit more work on your part, because they're already trying to do that with skills, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. But then you're able to push out that little bit more on top of it. Just slightly.
I think the only area you don't want to get to is where everyone learns how to push out that little bit more. And then again, we're back to that. Everyone's creating the same exact type of weapon.
Well, then would we not get to that same point with DPS? If everybody is learning to get exactly on their skill checks for doing more DPS, and you maybe
no DPS meter.
And you maybe may not be getting those checks properly because maybe that's just not what you were wanting to do specifically or whatever, then you're not putting out as much damage and you're not killing things as quickly because you're not hitting those as perfectly. You know, I think I didn't say that. That was Vertec that said that, okay? I didn't say that. I was just talking about like the same system, but put it in like damage, right? So like if it's okay in damage, why is it not okay in crafting?
Yeah,
that's more my point.
Also, she probably has gotten tired of me ranting about the lack of DPS meters, because I think it's just going to make it more difficult for the people who would normally call those that gauge your ability to enter a raid with a DPS meter toxic. Those people are going to have a much harder time.
Did you both play WoW?
I did for a while, yes.
Okay. So you remember when you started playing and that first time you're in Ironforge or whatever your main city was, and you saw that guy walk in with the uber freaking armor that everyone just had to run around, and huddle around the guy and look at him and was like, ooh, do you remember that guy the first time you saw him?
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of shit we want to see in Ashes and everything. And the last thing we want to do is create a crafting system where everybody's going to be walking around in that armor, and everyone has the same armor. We want everything to kind of be a little bit difficult to acquire. And if you notice that someone has it, that they put some effort into obtaining that. So as long as the difficulty is there, and again, he may have some uber armor and he may have some uber armor, but their stats may not be the same. So we know that they're not exactly the same freaking armor. We visually can't tell what's different with them, but they each know that, what their stats, are either high or low in and everything. I really think that's kind of the route to go, just to kind of make it so everybody's. The last thing I want to see, and you can't stop this. It's going to happen even in this game, even with no damage meters, is everybody is going to try to min-max everything. And even without damage meters, we have scrolling combat text. Someone's going to be able to sit there and hit something for a while, watch those little scrolling combat text numbers go up, and they're going to record all that, and then they're going to figure out on their calculator and everything how much DPS they're doing per second, and they're going to create something new. That it's going to happen regardless, no matter how much they try to stop it.
And that's kind of what I was saying, is the people that are against DPS meters, it's just going to make their lives more difficult, because now they're going to be told to go kill that elephant. You have a minute and a half. I don't want to do that. All right, you're not in the raid. Okay, bye. Next, kill that elephant. You have a minute and a half to kill it. If you can't kill it in a minute and a half, you're not going in. That's now their test. They now have to go and jump through extra hoops or not go in. So now that's the new toxic, instead of just, all right, if you can't hit the DPS check, then you can't keep running with us. There's going to be a different DPS check.
And I'm fine with that. I don't know if you are, but I think it's kind of the norm that when you create a raid group, You want the best people you can find in your freaking raid group. And comparing it to other freaking games, we're talking about a game here where the raid itself is not even the worst part of it. The worst part of it is we might encounter another raid group while we're in there. So we need people in our raid group who are geared, who can fight back, who can defend themselves and not let other freaking people come in and steal our ship. The rules of the game have changed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, unfortunately, everything I can think of for making crafting more interesting is either going to make it more laborious or just make it not fun, or is going to make it so that if you have any kind of lag, then you're not going to be able to do anything interesting with it. Outside of, like we were talking about, adding different specific components in to adjust the stats, how you want them.
Yeah.
But that's something that literally everybody can do if they just know what to add or have the things to add in. So it's not really even a skill component there so much as like, do you have a bag of stuff? Yeah? All right, we'll start dumping some stuff in. There you go. It's better. But for an actual skill component, I can't really think of much that doesn't require timing or low ping or just being a laborious process like the blacksmith thing and smacking it to a rhythm. You don't want to do that for every item.
Well, I kind of like how Final Fantasy did it, where you could do it to an extent, and then from there, the things you made were of a higher quality. But or even like Genshin, right? For the first 10 recipes of Genshin, you have to sit there and you have to hit it at the right time. And then after you do that correct 10 times, every time you make it, it'll be a 5-star item. Something like that. Where it's a little bit of work for a longer term payoff. And I mean, I wasn't necessarily meaning the timing thing to be every single time either. I'm just saying that could add the added extra on top of the master craftsmanship, where you can craft it and you're going to get to the 100%. You're going to get to the point where people would want you to be and have it for that item. But to push out the slightly better chance of increasing the stats on it, that's where the timing thing would come in. It would probably do just fine. And maybe you might, if you got a better item, maybe a lower amount of strength component would, with the timing component, make it a higher level strength component equal kind of thing. So it might be easier to get the lower level, but you could boost it up to the quality of the higher level by doing the timing event, which is optional. Like, you don't even have to do it kind of thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But I don't know, because I was thinking that the combo system was going to require timing too. So it was just like, okay, if this is a system put in place with combat, then this is a way to reuse that same system. That's just all I was thinking of.
Yeah, I think they got rid of that after the first test at, was it PAX, I think?
Oh, did they?
Where they had the PvP and a whole lot of people in there.
I was so far behind on that then.
Touring people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was I think the only time I really saw it, and then Steven just stopped talking about it altogether.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not going to do that. Nobody likes it.
That's fair.
It's a fun idea, but
I think it's fun. I mean, it definitely ties back into D&D, where you have to roll your dice to see how well you crafted an item.
Yeah. I mean, I played a game for a minute called Cabal that was based on combos. Like, that's what the entire game was about, is just continually comboing your character, because your damage went up higher and higher and higher, and the combos got harder and harder to keep going. And some people would be insane and get up to like 25, 30 combo hits, and here I am at 7. Like, oh my gosh, that's tough.
So it's like
see if
a
I can get
game
it one of these days.
Simon, where you have to press those lighted buttons. It's like a real complicated version of that.
It was like there'd be like a shape on the screen or like a move, and you would kind of glow to a certain color. There'd be like a thing that would appear over here that would look like your sword, and you got to smack it once your sword gets there. And then over here there'd be like an explosion sign on the ground that would be faint and start glowing up more. And when it exploded is when you had to hit the button. And like depending on your class, like there were different signs you had to follow.
Interesting.
But yeah, it was bananas. It was actually a whole lot of fun. But yeah, I could definitely see if you're having a bad ping day, you're just not playing the game at all, because you couldn't get anywhere if you couldn't combo at least 3 to kill things in a decent amount of time.
That kind of reminds me, given even the potential of having to explore the world to go to a different node to see, like, perhaps that node is Metropolis and there's a boss event going there. So in order to get that boss event, you have to travel, right? So that kind of reminds me of the dev discussion for the month with the maps. And the way that the world map exploration works. I wonder how that's going to tie in, because I think we talked last week about after a certain period of time, that data that was reported may end up showing as inaccurate over time because the world is constantly changing. So they're kind of asking, would you like to see a traditional MMO world map that once explored, it updates with the ever-changing state of the world? Or would you prefer to see more innovative ways of keeping the map up to date? Because one of the ways of keeping the map up to date would be, so I was walking around and suddenly this raid boss popped out of nowhere. So I ran my happy little booty back to the node to report this, and now other people know that there's a raid boss there.
This was the discussion for the last burning discussion was everything we knew about maps.
Yeah.
And we pulled this in and one thing we're trying to figure out still is if the cartographer is still going to be a thing in Ashes. It was talked about a long time ago. We haven't heard anything else about it, but that's going to play a big role if it is, because then you can buy a new version of that particular sector of your map to update the information on it. But while we were talking about it and everything, it'd be really freaking cool to sit there and say, okay, I discovered this area here. There's level 20 mobs, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then you haven't been in that area for a few weeks. And the next time you come there and everything, your map still shows, that there's level 20 mobs over there and everything, but the node has freaking grown. The mobs have freaking leveled around that freaking node. And now when you go to that area, there's no more level 20 mobs there. It's a lot more dangerous, a lot more difficult. So being able to go see a cartographer every now and then, especially like, hey, I'm getting ready to travel to that area over there. Let's go see if we can get an updated version of the map. Get some new info. That would be cool. I'm down for anything in the game that makes us spend money, because I don't want to see our economy become like New World. I don't want everybody to be sitting on a plethora of freaking money too, where they're so damn rich that they can just buy whatever they want.
Right.
There's got to be sinkholes all over the freaking place.
Yeah, well, I would imagine
the fact that your armor and your weapons, take wear and tear, and you have to repair them all the time. Great. Here's the money. Heal me up. Boom. Taverns, go taverns, buy freaking beer and everything, and get dirt drunk. And then, I like that they did. Wow, I want to see your vision get all like blurred and everything. Go walk around town as a drunk. Maybe get arrested.
Yeah.
But I figure. Miss Goozy. I've only gotten like a couple hours sleep the past couple nights, so it's catching up to me. I'm gonna take a nap after this. But work's been killing me the past couple days. But what was I gonna say? Maps and cartography. I imagine that cartography is either going to be one of those sell 100 maps to make a couple bucks type professions, or they're at least going to have super high turnaround with map times.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the areas get fogged back up when things change, at least for the first year or so, you're going to need to get a new map every couple of days to a week. Because it's going to just get fogged back over, and whatever you have written down on paper is not going to be accurate anymore. Potentially vastly inaccurate after
we didn't even
month.
come up with that. We didn't know if the stuff would actually refog over. We just thought it would be, once you uncover everything, it's unfogged, but the information on that map might not be accurate anymore. And you could actually buy, if there was a cartographer, because your map is going to be divided up into a grid, so you can actually buy this grid, from someone, and maybe they're like, when you mouse over the grid on your map, it says last updated and gives you like a date or how many days ago or whatever. And then when you go to an auction house or whatever, or go to a cartographer, you can get a map that has been updated more recently and purchase it, and it puts it on your map with updated info.
Yeah, that'd be neat. I like the concept of buying like individual hexes or squares of map. Say, I'll buy this much of your map, please.
Mm-hmm. And then, this is something, if you going back into that, we don't even know the perks for the different classes, for the different races yet. So the Vex, who are stargazers and everything, and if they're making maps, maybe there's a perk that allows them to put something else on the freaking map that normally wouldn't be there.
What about maps for dungeons? A new dungeon opens up and you need a brave cartographer to go in and map it out. And
I think that would be cool.
Yeah. And then you can sell that to people that are trying to explore it and or raid it. And
it puts a race on who's going to get in that dungeon first. Because if we get those freaking cartographer maps, you stand to make a lot of freaking money for that dungeon for everyone else who hasn't been in there yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Overthrow was just saying, like, mining surveys that only miners would be interested in. Yeah. Go and do, surveys.
Keeps crafting relative.
Yeah. Scan the land for all the different whatever flowers and map those out.
But that's all going to be randomly generated from what I understood.
Well, there's still, I bet there's still going to be like regions and like popular places, because it would be really rough if they were just like, this entire circular spot that I just highlighted will have randomly generated everything everywhere.
Seasonal maps.
There to not be kind of hot spots because of just how the land is shaped.
Seasonal maps where during different seasons, like you can have like a map of the area, and for cartography of like, this is generally where during the spring this type of flora spawns around this general area, because that general area has more moisture, it's near a river, so the plants that need that river water are more likely to spawn around that area. But where they are specifically, you have to go find, but in general, that's what to expect of that area. I think that would be cool too, because then you can be like, what mobs, what kind of things would be here, because there's different types of maps for everything. There's maps for mobs, there's like best places to go eat, best places to get your car done. Like there's maps for everything these days. So applying that to a game.
You're sitting there thinking of all the hundreds of YouTube videos you can create. That's all you're thinking about.
No.
Thank you, by the way, Cash Kush, for the sleepy wishes. Fortunately, I got to do a whole bunch of stuff as soon as I get done here, but I'll take a nap after that. But unfortunately, I don't think that the maps will actually be as high value, like the maps created by a cartographer or whatnot. Sir Ensington, who says that the maps system as a face value seems very circumvent worthy. You buy a map, screenshot it, and then you're done. Because I think what Steven was talking about, because he did mention this in a previous video, and I think it was back when they were discussing the scientific node. maybe for the first time. We were talking about the library and recording back what's going on certain in certain nodes, and certain discoveries you make would be reported back to the library for sharing. But after a certain, I forget exactly how he phrased it, but it was something along the lines of after a certain number of days, that information becomes outdated. And then you have to go back out and get it again. So it could be anything from the main metropolis in that zone of influence, and this is beyond what he was talking about, but this is me theorizing now. Like the main metropolis could have leveled up, or could have leveled up to a metropolis, and suddenly all the level of creatures are in a certain area now a higher level. And because of the interaction and cooperation, I guess, behind the scenes between certain nodes, system-wise, it could totally unlock a certain thing, a certain dungeon or a certain event to occur. But then as soon as one of those nodes becomes unused for like a couple days or a week, it de-levels. Or because as soon as one becomes a hot fishing place, suddenly it levels up, and now that other thing that was available is no longer available because something else is there now. So if you get one map or one state of your map and you screenshot it, that could take a week to be completely different.
Right.
I mean, even terrain-wise, there could end up being like literally something that opens up out of the ground. Like the example of the whole, you go mining in the mountain and a dragon, blasts out of the side and comes after your town. Okay, well that's a new terrain feature.
But even if it takes a week to freaking change, I mean, think of everything you just said compared to all the games we played in the past.
Right.
That's like,
yeah,
just the possibilities in the freaking game makes you more excited for this.
Yeah.
There's just so much.
Yeah, Deadpool.
Meatloaf likes the Deddy pool.
Yeah, because last time when they were on my show, I kind of embarrassed Chibi a little bit. I made her turn a shade of red I had never seen before.
It was
told
glorious.
Vertec, I told Vertec to put a muzzle on her because she wouldn't shut up. She kept freaking da. It's like, damn, dude, none of us can talk. Put a muzzle on her or whatever. So I figured since I was coming as a guest on this show and everything, that I would actually, I'm sorry. Did I offend you? I just figured it was a perfect shirt.
Face is so red.
Yeah, it was a shade of red I had never seen before. I didn't know that shade of red existed. And then on top of that, she falls out of her freaking chair. She was just, I think she was drunk, to be honest.
Gravity won that battle.
She was testing some of your mead.
Oi. But yeah, that was the big interesting things that I found to talk about was the map stuff, just because there's so much stuff you could do with it, and then the shield blocking thing. But well,
usually
then there's a bunch of fin stuff.
Usually when they get ready to do the live stream, they usually ask or have us ask a bunch of questions and everything, and then they touch base on that in the live stream. This is the first time where they sat there and they turn around and ask us a question. So I'm going to assume that this is going to be a topic that's going to come up during the next live stream, which kind of makes me think they already have a game plan in the works, that they just kind of wanted to get some kind of confirmation from the community to see where we kind of stood with everything.
Yeah. We shall see. I'm really curious to see what they come up with.
Again, I have not been disappointed with their last few freaking live streams, so
not at all.
Bring it. Give us more freaking info, because I'm getting excited, and I know that spot testing is right around the freaking corner.
Tell me more. Let's see. All right. But one thing I did want to let everybody know about is there is a new song released by Mr. Milord. This one's for the Nikwa Dwarves, and I think it fits them pretty well. I'm hoping another one comes out for the Nikwa with maybe a little bit more festivity to it, though. Just a little bit extra boost to the festivity. I'm going dual shields. Actually, I'm going to try for 3 shields. I need to have one on my back at all times. If I'm going to turtle, I'm going to turtle the proper way. And now I am getting in line some of the fan art that we had, because we have there's a luminous star crawler from Cynical Bean, and it's one of my favorite creatures, and I cannot wait until we get to actually open up the box, so to say, by getting our Ashes game time with these things.
I think personally, I would be more worried if I don't see any questions about this month's live stream after this weekend. Because at least last weekend, they did it on the 24th when the live stream was on the 30th. And so it was Saturday or Friday to Thursday. So the previous Friday, and then going live the next Thursday. So if they follow that suit, then tomorrow, though, they may be doing an announcement of like, what are your questions, and then have it open for 1 week, because this is the month that we have 5 weeks of Fridays.
I forgot about that. Okay.
So, yeah, I think if we don't see it tomorrow, or if we don't see it anytime on Monday, then yeah, I'd be like, what's going on here? But yeah, just because there's the potential that they may not post it on Saturday, given, weekend hours kind of thing. So, yeah. I don't know. What if Steven forgot about it? I don't think he forgot about us. Yeah.
A shield Beyblade. Oh lordy. But check this little thing out. It's adorable. I want one.
Super cute.
I want to glow. Gerbil? Chinchilla?
Oh, you should show Amos after that.
I am indeed doing exactly that.
Okay, cool. I was like, that ends up working out perfect.
It do. Let's see. Where's hers? There's hers.
It's so cute, though. I love that creature. It looks like it'll murder you with telekinesis in your sleep.
That was crazy zoomed in. Why did I have it zoomed in that much?
That's a cool brick wall, man.
Hey, you like that?
Dude. Looks so
choice
real.
Bricks, man. You don't see those everywhere. Yeah, sorry. I went to switch over to the Twitch art thing that I have set up, and it was just, for some reason, bananas zoomed in. Like I was looking at an ant on the floor of the forest or something last time. I don't even know. There we are. There's the EMS work.
Super cute.
It's a little bit more doodly.
Yeah.
I cannot do the doodlies. The doodlies do not work for me. I have tried. But ooh. Check this one out too. This one's more hardcore, not quite so cute. Just saying.
Which one is this one?
Wanted to give that warning. The Blood Warden.
Okay. So the person for the Blood Warden kind of used an AI to help make the images. And that was really, really cool.
Yeah, not sure which AI they used, but it's a pretty intense AI. Because it made something. Alright. Look at that. And that's the, What was the Blood Warden, anyhow? Let me see.
Yeah, there's like 2 other versions too. It's really cool.
Yeah, but there's one of them. Here's another one. The next one's my favorite because it's a big WTF.
Whoa.
Look at that beast. I don't even know. It's somebody standing there looking awful proud, but with like spider tree legs.
Tank Ranger.
There we go.
Looks like Ranger? It's tank primary, ranger secondary, warden.
Oh no, this one is Blood Warden.
Oh.
That's what they were saying. Let me see. Blood Warden is summoner tank.
Oh, okay. My bad.
Oof. That's one of them I was looking at, so...
Very impressive.
Maybe, who knows? Maybe that's exactly what they look like. Maybe this is an official game leak. Who knows?
Blood, like blood.
I actually kind of like this middle one.
Yeah.
I had to look at it twice, like, what is he doing to that poor spider?
Dancing with it. That's his date for the night, apparently.
Oh, Toby, sorry, I missed it. Welcome in.
Looks like it brought him a flower. Love the AI doodles.
Yeah.
So many random things.
So now the big question is, who do we decide to prepare to raid?
Oh my gosh.
Because that's always the hard part at the end of the night.
It is. Especially when you have to try to spread some love and we're like, but it's the same people. It's the same people all the time. Alright, and it is indeed the same usual suspects. We got a Smorg, we've got a us, we've got a Tech Deck, we've got a Redbeard, a Redbird. No, Redbird is actually somebody else. Redbeard.
Redbird.
I was trying to make a funny on his name and then I realized it was actually legitimately somebody else that we've rated before and has rated us.
Yeah.
Alright, chat. Anybody have any requests for someone to raid? If not, we could flip a coin between Redbeard and Tech Deck just because some more love you, friend. But Phoenix, you got like 130 people watching you. We gotta help out the little peoples. Could help out the little peoples. Hey, Bochi.
Purpose of raiding.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But as we figure that part out, Extermicide, thank you so much for coming on again. As always, we get lost with the time, chit-chatting away. And
it's too easy when you're passionate about what you're talking about.
Cash. Love you too, Cash Kush. And did you have anything you wanted to close out with for the folks?
Nah, I'm good. Guys, just, burning discussion.
Oh, no.
Mondays, 9 p.m.
Sorry.
Check us out. There we go.
Oh, no.
But as always,
the bot is sleeping.
You guys are good people, and I love you, and I'm happy to be here, so.
I'm jealous. Bot is sleeping. I need to sleep.
Shall we raid Lost Tech Deck then? Playing Lost Ark?
Yeah, it's been a minute. I think we raided Redbeard the past like 2 times.
Okay.
I think we got him a couple times in a row. So yeah, let's do a Tech Deck. Playing some Lost Ark. Everybody, thank you so much for stopping by. We love you all. You spent your time with us, and you're never going to get it back, no matter how much you demand a refund. This tavern does not refund. Okay? You bought it. You're done. But no, seriously, you could have been doing anything. Yeah. You could have been watching this guy's older episodes. Instead, you're here watching a new one. So, we appreciate you. Always love your time and your chats.
Yeah. Thank you guys for being with us. Thank you for the support.
Be safe,
Love
everybody.
you all. All right, till next time.
Keep
Bye.
cool.
Bye.
It's hot out there.
Yeah.
It's true.